Imagine this chilling nightmare. 3 distinct extortion letters hit the media immediately after Nancy Guthrie vanished. Authorities verified a trio of these demands, though secret communications might still remain entirely hidden. Desperate to save her relatives actually authorized payments for a pair of these terrifying ultimatums. No price tag could ever outweigh the immeasurable value of bringing their cherished matriarch home safely. Yet yielding brought only dead quiet. The extortionist vanished instantly. 0 replies, 0 evidence of survival, just a void. So did the actual kidnapper even pen these terrifying messages. Keep watching this video as we will eventually reveal Savannah's exact thoughts regarding the true authenticity behind every single one of these twisted demands. Countless armchair detectives tracking this terrifying ordeal have harbored serious justifiable doubts regarding the actual validity of those terrifying monetary ultimatums. Honestly, that skepticism makes perfect sense once you deeply examine the bizarre delivery methods and the twisted aftermath of the relatives' compliance, which forcefully brings a singular, haunting concept to mind. Playtime. This lacked the hallmarks of authentic bargaining or sincere request from an actual captor seeking a payday. It was just a sick charade. Before dissecting those shady letters, we must establish a solid bedrock of essential background facts for our deep dive today. Understanding the victim's identity, the terrifying nature of her disappearance, and the initial media frenzy is absolutely critical for fully grasping the ensuing chaos. Residing solitary in the Catalina foothills area of Tucson, Arizona, the 84-year-old possessed a highly vulnerable cardiovascular issue necessitating constant, everyday pharmaceutical treatment. Her final confirmed sighting occurred during nightfall on January 31st, 2026, involving her daughter's husband. Tomas Ochian escorted her back to her residence following a group meal. They reached the entrance between 9:45 and 9:50 that night. She entered, he departed, and the situation seemed utterly mundane. Sometime before sunrise, she vanished without a trace. Detectives uncovered a highly revealing narrative while scouring the property shortly after the alert sounded. Specifically, the porch surveillance system suddenly went totally offline at 1:47 in the morning. Additionally, her cardiovascular monitoring software severed ties with her mobile device around 2:30 in the early morning, a crucial detail since maintaining that vital digital link demands close physical closeness. That technological failure strongly implied her physical absence from the property by that exact hour. Furthermore, investigators discovered crimson stains across the entryway, which genetic testing quickly matched to the senior. Security video unveiled to the masses by federal agents several weeks later depicted a disguised, weapon-toting suspect. Authorities characterized this intruder as a medium-built man standing between 5'9" and 5'10", wearing a dark 25-liter Ozark Trail rucksack. He methodically stalked the exterior boundaries during the pre-dawn gloom, intentionally obscuring the security lens using suspected botanical materials before retreating into the shadows and creeping back again. During those initial frantic days, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos openly shared his immediate visceral instinct that a violent kidnapping had definitely taken place. He firmly stated, "We possess an actual felony." Physical clues supported this. The crimson droplets and the intentionally blinded security lens before daybreak confirmed it. The cardiac monitor dropping offline precisely at 2:30 in the morning added to the horror. Furthermore, his preliminary press conferences highlighted a terrifying detail that significantly amplified the already desperate crisis. The vulnerable senior lacked her vital daily prescriptions, which are absolutely essential for her continued survival. Her fragile cardiovascular state demands constant pharmaceutical support, a terrifying reality her relatives desperately emphasized during their debut broadcast. Staying alive and avoiding agonizing suffering depended on those pills. Consequently, federal agents quickly embedded themselves into the manhunt. Given that the missing woman birthed beloved morning television host Savannah Guthrie, this terrifying ordeal skyrocketed into a nationwide sensation mere hours after the initial law enforcement deployment. Such extreme limelight profoundly influenced the subsequent chaos. Less than 48 hours following the initial mainstream broadcasts, sinister monetary demands began flooding the airways. Ultimately, the widespread public refusal to view these threatening ultimatums as genuine stems from a pair of highly distinct, glaringly obvious red flags. The primary anomaly involves the delivery method itself. When deeply examining authentic abductions featuring terrified captives and calculating perpetrators genuinely seeking lucrative payouts, the communication tactics always look wildly different. Criminals almost never utilize journalistic outlets for correspondence. Put yourself inside the mind of a tactical hostage taker for a moment. Total invisibility ensures their survival. Every single broadcasting pathway they select generates a traceable digital breadcrumb. Federal agents are swarming. Regional cops maintain constant vigilance. The consequences of exposure mean life behind bars. Therefore, what methods do actual captors employ to transmit their extortion threats? They orchestrate stealthy direct contact with relatives using dedicated cellular lines, drop physical letters at a loved one's doorstep, or leverage a secure digital avenue entirely under the criminal's command. They engineer scenarios isolating the dialogue strictly between themselves and the check writers. This intentionally blinds police surveillance, shuts out mainstream gossip, and blocks cyber experts from weaponizing the exchange to pinpoint the perpetrator's lair. A seasoned criminal violently opposes seeing their lucrative scheme splashed across celebrity gossip sites, parading their crypto depository details openly for millions of curious civilians to scrutinize. Yet this perfectly describes the events of February 2nd, 2026. Just one day following the senior's official disappearance, the premier extortion letter hit KOLD News 13. This Tucson CBS affiliate received the threat via their accessible online public tip portal. It bypassed the famous daughter's private channels and ignored the legal team, landing instead on an open-source forum available to any web surfer. Shortly afterward, on February 3rd, another tabloid secured a copy. KGUN9, another local station, acquired a similar text simultaneously. This specific note aggressively demanded $6 million, setting a firm February 9th deadline. The tabloid empire broadcasted their copy on February 3rd, swiftly forwarding the digital file to Pima County law enforcement. Harvey Levin appeared on national cable television to dissect the horrifying contents. The text alleged the captive remained physically unharmed, yet terrified, simultaneously declaring the anonymous author utterly unreachable. 0 phone digits, 0 emails, nothing. The rigid directives flowed unilaterally. Transfer the funds into this crypto ledger before the deadline expires, or face devastating consequences. The loved ones lacked any avenue to ask questions. They possessed 0 platform for bargaining. They faced a dictatorial ultimatum broadcasted by sleazy publications featuring a digital currency destination instantly transformed into globally accessible intelligence. While regarding the indicators proving its authenticity, we instantly verified the provided cryptocurrency destination, confirming it operated as a genuinely active digital depository. Here's why this detail matters so much. The general public falsely assumes that virtual currency offers impenetrable anonymity. Consequently, the architect behind these terrifying letters either lacked basic technological literacy or cynically gambled on the desperate relatives remaining ignorant. Digital defense specialist Juan Andres Guerrero Sade bluntly informed cable news audiences, cryptocurrency tracking is incredibly precise. Investigators can easily monitor every individual asset transfer bouncing across the blockchain network. People blindly believe digital money gives them perfect cover. But chain analysis expert Madeleine Kennedy, who designed software to hunt crypto criminals, completely shattered that myth on CBS News. They think tokens like Bitcoin offer absolute invisibility, yet the reality couldn't be further from the truth. As soon as funds drop into an account and get shuffled toward a trading platform to be cashed out into real dollars, the trap springs. Federal agents simply slap them with a subpoena and track that digital breadcrumb trail right to the suspect's doorstep. Trading sites grab every detail upon sign-up, from birth dates to permanent residences, meaning all that personal data sits waiting to be pulled. Once TMZ dropped that crypto address on February 3rd, snatching that payoff transformed into America's most heavily scrutinized money transfer, with federal agents eyeing every move. Tech sleuths and reporters glued their eyes to the screen too, because no professional crook seeking millions paints a giant target on their own drop zone. That immediately raised alarms, choosing a massive gossip outlet over quiet negotiations while tossing out an account link the whole planet could watch live. Digging into the actual letter leaked to the press reveals another baffling layer, since the author's weird details create far more confusion than clarity. Based on Harvey Levin breaking it down on CNN, the extortionist explicitly stated that reaching out to them was entirely impossible. You don't write something like that by accident, and it certainly doesn't sound like a kidnapper eager to strike a bargain. Anyone actually looking for a massive payday requires a two-way street to confirm when the cash is dropping and when to let the captive walk. Intentionally shutting down the only communication pipeline completely defies the fundamental logic of a professional shakedown. The writer was either paralyzed by the fear of getting caught, or they purposefully crafted a fake scenario with zero intention of making a real trade. The blackmailer basically declared this a one-off message, loudly slamming the door shut on any future conversations or bargaining. Honestly, the victims look completely desperate here, precisely because the perpetrators left them with zero options for reaching back out. Local deputies in Pima County validated the letters but treaded lightly, and then Phoenix FBI lead Heath Janke took the mic. During his February 5th media briefing, the federal boss dropped a crucial nugget that flew under everyone's radar. He pointed out how the extortionist heavily relied on random facts already floating around in the daily news cycle. Stuff like the smartwatch and security lights were already common knowledge regarding the Guthrie residence, meaning those clues utterly failed to prove the letter's legitimacy. Any true crime junkie glued to the screen since February 1st could have sprinkled those facts in, though the agent refused to outright label it a hoax. While assuring folks they were digging deep to verify it, his focus on the public tidbits served as a giant warning sign that confirming the source would be messy. Then he delivered a sobering line that completely framed how the entire country viewed the victim's next moves. He made it crystal clear that despite heavy federal guidance, the relatives held absolute power over whether to finally pay up. Authorities refused to hold their hands, meaning the clan navigated this nightmare backed by expert advice, but carrying the final burden entirely alone. Things got even fishier once the relatives struck back, cementing everyone's doubts when they finally broke their silence on February 4th, exactly 4 days into the nightmare. Flanked by her siblings, Annie and Cameron, the TV host, dropped an intense Instagram plea aimed right at the invisible kidnapper. Stating they had seen the news leaks, she promised they were pulling out all the stops and desperately wanted to negotiate. But she quickly pivoted to the danger of digital deception, demanding absolute certainty that their mother was still breathing and actually in custody. They practically begged for a lifeline, promising open ears if the culprit would just step out of the shadows and make contact. Acknowledging the demands, they pleaded for her safe return to end their torment, making it incredibly clear just how desperate they were to get her back. Promising serious cash, the siblings completely stripped away any excuse the extortionists had to hide, leaving the door wide open. Broadcasting their absolute willingness to play ball across the internet, they begged for a single shred of evidence showing she survived. They desperately needed concrete proof that whoever penned that creepy message genuinely held their mom hostage in a secure location. Yet they received absolutely nothing but total radio silence, lacking so much as a quick voice memo, a messy handwritten signature, or an obscure family joke that only her actual children could verify. For 48 agonizing hours between their broadcasted pleas, the void stared back without a single sign she was actually okay. Crucially, establishing her survival felt infinitely trickier than past abductions, a terrifying reality the anchor herself highlighted on camera. Referencing how easily folks doctor media nowadays, she directly called out the creeping terror of synthetic deepfakes and artificial intelligence. The tech has gotten so terrifyingly good that anyone can spin up hyper-realistic footage of someone saying things they never actually uttered. Federal agent Heath Janke echoed those exact fears the very next morning while facing the packed press corps. He warned that machine learning makes faking footage a breeze, forcing investigators to view any supposed hostage tapes with massive suspicion. Essentially, a classic clip of her grasping today's paper wouldn't satisfy the feds until their tech guys tore the file apart pixel by pixel. Scammers could easily stitch together old broadcasts to fake her face or perfectly clone her vocal cords using random internet clips. The kids clearly grasped this modern nightmare scenario, prompting the journalist to flag it immediately during her initial plea to the public. By 2026, confirming a captive's pulse demands evidence, immune to digital trickery, pushing the standard for the truth higher than ever before. Boom, absolute silence from the blackmailer, no doctored images, zero legitimate snapshots, just pure air. Doubters immediately closed the book the second that vital survival evidence failed to materialize, mostly due to basic common sense. Snatching a hostage for cash means flashing visual confirmation of breathing status the instant frantic relatives beg for it. Supplying that visual is free and practically guarantees a payday, so hiding it ruins any tactical advantage for an abductor hoping to cash out. Holding back that crucial evidence only tracks if you never snatch the victim, desperately relying on blind panic for a payout, or worse, the target is already deceased. Things took a wildly convoluted turn right then, entirely thanks to a West Coast resident deliberately muddying the waters. Enter 42-year-old Derek Kayla out of Hawthorne, California, a guy completely detached from the actual Nancy Guthrie vanishing. Yet on February 4th, 2026, barely moments post the clan dropping their initial Instagram reel, he acted. He fired up a premium spoofing app and blasted matching text to Savannah's sibling Annie Guthrie Tion, alongside her spouse Tommaso Tion. His exact words read, "Did you get the Bitcoin? We are waiting on our end for the transaction." 3 minutes down the line, he dialed another relative using that bogus caller identification for exactly 9 seconds. Once federal agents slapped cuffs on him 24 hours later, he claimed those messages were just a twisted test to gauge the household's reaction. After digging up their digits via web snooping, he possessed zero insider details about the abduction, entirely clueless regarding Nancy's whereabouts or captors. Catching a broadcast pushed him to scour the web for numbers and aggressively insert himself. Federal trackers easily mapped the phantom digits straight back to his personal Google Mail, pinpointing his physical Hawthorne residence via network data. Prosecutors nailed him with a pair of federal offenses, slinging extortion demands across state lines and weaponizing communication gadgets for faceless intimidation. Sprung on a $20,000 bail demanding ankle bracelets and strict silence, his legal battles raged on, especially since Kala was simultaneously battling unrelated felonies. Back in October 2025, authorities busted him alongside 12 other local civil servants for supposedly siphoning plague-era government relief funds. The district attorney directly pinpointed him for deceitfully pocketing almost $10,000 in assistance cash, despite steadily collecting his regular municipal salary. Buried within the federal charging documents lay a crucial distinction that almost everyone blatantly skimmed right past. Zero ties existed between his digital taunts and the February 2nd, 2020 shakedown, proving he was just a lone opportunist, not the genuine abductor. Justice officials painted him as a sleazy fraudster preying on domestic trauma, but his entire relevance to the broader extortion plot hinges exclusively on scheduling. Cops publicized his capture on February 5th, aligning perfectly with the Bureau's media briefing, authenticating the initial blackmail probe dominating the identical daily headlines. Casual headline surfers immediately assumed detectives had successfully bagged a culprit permanently tied to the cash grab, missing the truth. Whoever actually mailed those missives to KOLTMZ and KGN, the very threats that provoked the household's desperate reply remained a ghost. Still unindicted and cloaked in total mystery, the real culprit evaded capture, prompting Phoenix top federal agent Heath Janke to hurl a fierce verbal threat at potential copycats. Any scammers plotting to exploit or monetize this tragedy will face our full investigative wrath and severe consequences. While that caution felt mandatory, the authentic blackmailer had vanished into thin air right before a third distinct message materialized near February 11th. The celebrity gossip outlet caught a fresh letter from a totally different player who flat out denied being the hostage taker. Demanding a single digital coin valued near $66,000 a sum, dwarfing the active federal bounty, this informant swore they knew the culprit's identity. Promising to trade the perpetrator's moniker for crypto, they bragged about previously pinging Cameron Guthrie and Annie Sion via private inboxes and cellular channels. Spotting a drastically altered vibe compared to the pioneer letters, the tabloid crew swiftly kicked this new evidence over to federal agents. Look, I vividly recall spotting things 5 days back down in Mexico before getting silenced, so I can name him, and Nancy was absolutely in tow. Mentioning accomplices twice, now he hinted at a ringleader, backed by lackeys, leaving the mid-February intelligence landscape looking like a chaotic jigsaw puzzle. 3 initial press leaks, a February 6th follow-up, sparking the cash promise clip, a clueless Californian busted for spoofing, plus a greedy insider hawking the snatcher's name. Dueling motives and numerous players bred absolute chaos over facts versus fiction, completely lacking any survival verification, permanently cementing the mainstream theory. It morphed into a sick amusement park, where random predators milked a famous, vanishing, twisting domestic heartbreak, while the authentic mystery gathered dust. Then Savannah Guthrie parked herself in a chair on March 26th, 2026, aggressively shattering that cynical assumption. 54 agonizing days post-abduction, she joined Hoda Kotb for an initial broadcast sit-down since February 1st following a massive 7-week hiatus from morning television. Confessing how nocturnal dread forces her to visualize her mom's living nightmare, she admitted those unbearable mental horrors refused to be ignored. Picturing her sheer panic is gut-wrenching, yet my brain insists on confronting it, and honestly, I refuse to cower in the shadows. During that tense window spanning February 10th to March 26th, bridging the communication blackout, and her televised chat detectives kept grinding while official updates entirely dried up. Badge wearers circled back to scour Annie Guthrie's residence for a secondary sweep right around mid-February. Regional news cameras caught federal operatives and Pima County badges knocking on every single door bordering Annie's property, meticulously combing the adjacent blocks. Despite a flood of fresh leads and a nationwide federal billboard blitz, the glaring lack of a concrete suspect or massive break caused the entire saga to slip quietly off the main headlines. Shattering her agonizing silence, Savannah briefly returned to New York early this March, stepping onto the Today set for the initial time following her mom's sudden vanishing. Network representatives confirmed her upcoming on-screen comeback, while emphasizing that her primary mission right now is entirely dedicated to comforting her relatives and desperately fighting to secure Nancy's safe return. Throughout the ongoing search out in Arizona, she constantly bounced around from one safe house to another. Speaking with Kotb, she mentioned how they literally fled a house under the cover of night once strangers began gathering right outside their doors. This frantic search didn't merely consume their schedules, it completely turned their whole existence upside down. Speaking to authorities, she described the absolute agony of watching vicious internet rumors falsely accuse her own relatives of causing Nancy's tragic fate, especially since law enforcement has officially exonerated the entire Guthrie clan from suspicion. Dealing with those vicious public rumors while simultaneously drowning in grief over her vanishing mom truly injected an extra dose of pure evil into an absolutely nightmarish ordeal, she explained. A decent person simply must step up, she stated, adding, "Our hearts are completely shattered. We are hurting immensely. It's totally suffocating." She revealed to Kotb how right during the early morning of February 1st, her sibling Annie rang her up stating, "Our mother has completely vanished." Hanging at Carson Daly's place alongside her children during that ring, she realized Annie was totally freaking out, and she instantly started panicking too. Shortly after that, her sibling Cameron Drawing on his armed forces experience, instantly analyzed the grim scenario with crystal clarity. According to Savannah, he called her to share his chilling theory, stating, "I strongly suspect she was snatched for a hefty payout." Savannah admitted to Caudaby that she instantly rejected the notion, simply unable to process such a horrifying concept. Then came the terrifying inquiry she dreaded voicing. "Is this happening because of who I am?" He gently replied, "I hate to say it, honey, but yes, quite possibly." Those heavy words have haunted her ever since, as the agonizing thought of inadvertently leading danger right to her mom's doorstep is utterly suffocating. Believing she caused it all, she mentally apologized to her mother, crying out in deep remorse to her siblings, her own children, her nephew, and her brother-in-law Tommy, carrying an intensely intimate and incredibly crushing burden of personal blame. The agonizing dread that her high-profile broadcasting job, constant screen presence, and assumed immense wealth had somehow turned her aging parent into late-night prey is purely devastating. Furthermore, she detailed the sheer emotional toll of recording those desperate replies to the captor's clips that went totally viral and dominated nonstop broadcast cycles everywhere. How on earth are we forced to film clips begging for a sliver of compassion from whoever violently dragged a frail 84-year-old grandmother out of bed barefoot and without her vital medications? This wasn't some calculated PR stunt, just desperate relatives grasping at straws. Moreover, watching the security clips published by federal agents chilled her to the bone, right before she shared an even more gut-wrenching realization. The mere thought of that menacing figure looming above her sleeping form is beyond my comprehension, completely breaking my heart. She was referring to the disguised intruder carrying a rucksack and a firearm captured on the home security feed early February 1st, painfully visualizing the pure terror Nancy must have endured right before being dragged away into the darkness. Additionally, she dropped a chilling bombshell the relatives previously kept hidden. Nancy's main entryway was discovered wedged wide open the moment emergency responders pulled up. Authorities originally suspected a sudden health crisis until uncovering red stains, a disabled security device, and the ajar entryway. Everything escalated quickly, and regarding the extortion letters, she noted, "We received numerous demands, though I strongly suspect the vast majority of them, from what I gather, are completely bogus, so I avoided reading them. However, anyone twisted enough to mock a grieving household with phony demands desperately needs to do some serious soul-searching. Nevertheless, I am incredibly confident that the pair of messages we actually acknowledged and replied to were entirely authentic." For 54 long days, authorities kept completely quiet about their validity, merely repeating that the threatening letters remained under review without ever offering concrete validation. Catching everyone off guard on national television, Savannah bluntly declared that almost all those extortion threats were total fakes. She truly believes the two threats her family addressed were perfectly legitimate, and zeroing in on the word "answered" makes her statement incredibly precise here. Her relatives recorded that February 4th clip directly addressing the earliest murmurs of extortion demands hitting the newsstands. Insiders close to the probe verified to ABC News that the desperate February 7th cash offer clip served as an explicit reply to another threatening message delivered to Cole exactly one day prior. The station's lead editor verified this follow-up message landed right before midday on that Friday, noting it lacked a direct cash request and stood completely apart from the original. Yet its contents were horrifying enough to force the relatives onto screens offering funds within 24 hours. Running just 20 seconds, that February 7th clip showed Savannah squeezed between Cameron and Annie, solemnly announcing they had received the message loud and clear. "We are desperately pleading for our mom's safe return so we can properly rejoice together once more, as this remains our sole path to finding any sense of closure. Her return is invaluable, and we will definitely fund it," marking a drastic pivot from 4 days prior when they merely offered to talk. By February 7th, they were ready to drop the cash. That February 6th delivery at Cole quickly shoved her relatives from open dialogue right into an ironclad financial commitment. Firmly convinced of the pair's authenticity, Savannah spoke out despite knowing perfectly well the funds were left untouched, and the sheer weight of this new conviction shifts the entire narrative dramatically. For 7 agonizing weeks, cops maintained an incredibly detached stance, routinely claiming they were actively probing the letters and treating them with gravity while refusing to solidly verify their true origins. Savannah's bold March 26 declaration completely alters the established narrative in ways the authorities avoided, especially given she holds 0 official police badges. She definitely lacks the federal tools to scientifically verify those threats. Yet she remains the exact heartbreaking target those cruel demands were intended to break. She is the exact person who addressed them twice on broadcast, explicitly swearing to hand over the requested cash. Trusting those horrific letters were penned by the actual kidnappers transforms that untouched crypto account from a mere digital mystery into the absolute most glaring, unresolved enigma of this whole nightmare. Laying it all out on a March 26th, 2026, she spoke as a broken daughter still entirely clueless about her mom's whereabouts, watching helplessly as the February 9th cutoff hopelessly expired. Uploading a heartfelt clip that very afternoon, she desperately pleaded for community leads, urging viewers to hold out hope, firmly declaring her deep faith that her mom was still surviving somewhere. Please send her back. Skipping any money talk or police backing, the exact next day, February 10th, saw Arizona's family enter the chat, absolutely. Boom, a massive breakthrough dropped when the affiliate channel verified a single digital transfer hitting that initial crypto account around 5 in the afternoon. Arizona hours ticked by, yet the exact figure and mysterious sender stayed totally unverified. A massive March 26th gossip report finally killed the biggest mystery: nobody ever paid that ransom. Whatever digital cash dropped into that account on February 10th absolutely failed to satisfy the multi-million-dollar extortion scheme. Harvey Levin found the ordeal completely mind-boggling, especially since relatives openly promised to pay while actively working with federal agents, yet the funds never moved. He admitted being totally clueless about whether relatives suddenly got cold feet or if federal investigators firmly warned the household away from wiring the payout. Once February 10th passed, every single message just completely dried it up, leaving zero fresh threats, while the mysterious extortionist vanished into total radio silence. 3 logical theories perfectly match these hard facts without needing wild guesswork, starting with the very real possibility that the blackmailer simply chickened out. Broadcasting their ransom across major television networks totally backfired, blowing up into an explosive nationwide media frenzy instead of the secretive underground exchange they expected. Federal agents hosted massive briefings, instantly busting a California guy within 24 hours for faking threats, proving to the world how aggressively authorities monitored this. Crypto nerds hit major news networks, breaking down exactly how authorities track digital coins, showing how easily government warrants force trading platforms to expose identities. That initial threat went live on February 3rd, but barely 2 days later, by February 5th, federal investigators were already hosting massive press briefings. Authorities already cuffed a suspect, while literally every massive broadcasting network across the country aggressively highlighted just how easily investigators could track that digital ledger. An extortion plot that initially felt totally untraceable on paper suddenly transformed into an absolute nightmare once the intense public spotlight actually hit. Funneling huge cash piles through such a glaringly obvious digital account toward a regulated platform probably felt like pure suicide, prompting them to just bail. Yet abandoning that cash payout absolutely fails to explain the ultimate fate of their captive, leaving behind a horrifying quiet, providing zero closure today. Another solid theory suggests the culprits desperately craved that cash grab, but quickly realized pulling it off without getting busted was downright impossible. It wasn't about getting scared. They literally built their own cage by leveraging mainstream media, making that digital vault painfully obvious to the world. Detectives, hardcore crypto trackers, and reporters kept a relentless open watch on that exact account. The second those digital coins shifted toward a trading hub, intense cyber investigations would kick off and mercilessly hunt down the actual human pulling strings. Those criminals likely realized quickly that absolutely every possible escape route eventually ended with their true faces completely exposed. The digital vault stays empty, not because the kidnappers suddenly dropped their cruel demands. They froze simply because chasing that money turned into a guaranteed one-way ticket to federal prison, making the remaining implications incredibly grim. If your hostage becomes completely worthless for scoring cash, what happens to the innocent human you violently dragged into this nightmare? The absolute grimmest theory demands totally honest attention, instead of just blindly burying our heads in the sand. If Nancy Guthrie has already tragically passed away, those captors literally hold 0 cards left to trade. Swapping her life for massive digital wealth becomes totally impossible the second that primary hostage is ripped from the equation, leading to a dark reality. Every single weird move pulled by the shadowy author perfectly matches the desperate actions of a criminal, staring down a horribly botched kidnapping job. Absolute radio silence. 0 fresh messages, missing extortion threats, and dodging a massive bounty that totally blew past the $1 million mark. Losing their main leverage destroyed any reason to surface, since stepping into the light guarantees an instant arrest. So this heavy quiet just drags indefinitely. It absolutely isn't some crazy coincidence, nor does it mean we are totally missing a vital clue. That terrifying hush might actually be the ultimate truth, though detectives refuse to quit, while federal squads haven't officially downgraded this hunt into a recovery mission. The local sheriff boldly claimed back in February that Nancy remained alive. Yet honestly, the brutal evidence makes clinging to that sunny hope incredibly tough. Abducting a fragile 84-year-old cardiac patient without packing her crucial daily pills late on January 31st was a total disaster, especially since captors never provided any survival proof, despite missed deadlines and relatives begging to pay. A huge bounty soaring past $1 million stayed live for several weeks, Yet absolutely nobody holding real clues about Nancy's whereabouts ever stepped up. Cops logged over 18,000 hotline tips, including an insane wave of 4,000 frantic calls within one 24-hour window. Federal agents even plastered her desperate missing poster across giant electronic highway signs, stretching wildly through Texas, California, Arizona, and New Mexico. Cops blasted the security tapes publicly, plastering that masked suspect's silhouette everywhere. Ex-federal deputy boss Andrew McCabe strongly likened this aggressive video drop to the exact desperate playbook agents relied upon during the horrific Boston Marathon hunt. You essentially throw your classified evidence out into the open because private clues completely dried up, leaving ordinary citizens' sharp eyes as your final bullet. Retired federal tactical expert James Galliano broke down the clips, pointing out how the masked crook fumbled that firearm like a complete rookie. Searchers found black gloves during a massive sweep, instantly shipping them out for hardcore genetic testing. Detectives relentlessly blitzed the neighborhood hunting for tapes, dating back to January 1st, aggressively ripping digital clips from porches, cell phones, and dash cams everywhere. Cops briefly snatched up a prime suspect mid-February, a local delivery courier named Carlos Palazuelos, who literally dropped off parcels at Nancy's doorstep around her abduction. Cops interrogated him, but let him walk scot-free right before an anonymous tip slammed into that gossip site around February 11th. That wild message demanded 1 Bitcoin to out the real snatcher, loudly dropping Palazuelos' name, while whining about dodging the same brutal police heat. The chilling timing of that letter landing right after authorities publicly exonerated Palazuelos proves the mastermind was monitoring every move as it happened. Bounty figures skyrocketed weekly, with federal agents initially offering $50,000 before doubling it to $100,000. Nancy's relatives then stepped up, pledging a massive private bounties of $1 million, purely for clues that bring her home safely. Throwing in another $12,500 was the nonprofit group 88 Crime, pushing the total cash pool past $1.2 million by late February. That makes this an absolutely unprecedented modern payout for a vanished citizen, yet cops still have 0 arrests, 0 suspects, and 0 clues about the disguised figure on tape. Speaking at Todd Katubo on March 26th, Savannah confirmed the hunt is ongoing and praised the relentless detectives even though they remain utterly stuck. Let us be brutally honest right now, striking out completely for 8 solid weeks during a massive, heavily publicized media circus of this magnitude is a glaring, totally unacceptable failure. We are talking about the combined might of Phoenix federal agents, Puma County detectives, and direct eyes from the absolute highest office in the land. Even President Trump took to Truth Social that February, broadcasting his personal chat with Savannah and ordering absolutely every available federal law enforcement unit to assist her family, immediately sparking insane nationwide press. Neon signs crossed state lines, hotlines jammed with 18,000 tips, and organizers dangled over $1.2 million. Endless swarms of online sleuths have scrutinized that chilling porch camera video of the disguised phantom. Internet detectives matched his exact bag model and analyzed his physical dimensions. Yet by March 26, 2026, the guy remains a total ghost. Staying completely hidden against advanced facial scans, intricate crypto trackers, massive public hotlines, and a $1 million bounty is an insanely terrifying accomplishment that demands serious reflection right now. Savannah poured her heart out, pleading that the family was enduring absolute torture and begging for a hero to step forward. Convinced the threatening letters were genuine, she battles nightly nightmares of her mother's suffering and carries the crushing guilt of being the actual target. Recording those clips was a highly calculated move, functioning as a direct televised message to Nancy's ruthless captors. She took that leap of faith entirely blind, promising massive amounts of cash to a ruthless phantom who refused to provide a single photo voice clip or sign that her mom survived. What genuinely baffles everyone, and what authorities refuse to address, is the deafening quiet dropping right after the victims agreed to play ball. Detectives keep dodging questions about the stalled payout, leaving us completely in the dark on whether federal agents blocked the transaction. Nobody will admit if secret back-channel messages altered the entire strategy right after the family broadcasted their surrender. Our only hard fact comes from a March 26 TMZ report verifying that authorities simply watched the account while the cash stayed put. Beyond that leak lies a total blackout, though the cryptocurrency address remains frozen on a transparent digital ledger. The extortion money never moved an inch, and the shadowy blackmailer essentially dropped off the face of the earth. Longtime viewers know we deal strictly in verified facts rather than rumors, and our dedicated team absolutely refuses to drop this bizarre investigation until the real truth finally comes to light. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell instantly, because major breaks could happen at any moment, and you definitely want us right in your feed the second they drop. One painful lesson from this story is that fear can make people vulnerable not only to tragedy, but also to manipulation. When a family is desperate to save someone they love, they may cling to any message that offers hope. That is exactly why criminals, opportunists, and attention seekers can be so dangerous in moments of public crisis. This case reminds us that compassion must walk hand in hand with wisdom. In emergencies, emotions run high, but truth still matters. False threats, fake demands, and public exploitation do not just confuse investigators, they deepen the suffering of families already living through unimaginable heartbreak. When human pain becomes someone else's game, it reveals a devastating loss of conscience. The deeper message is simple but powerful: we must protect one another with both empathy and integrity. Society becomes stronger when we reject cruelty, refuse to spread chaos, and stand beside victims with patience, responsibility, and respect. Real strength is not found in panic greed or spectacle. It is found in honesty, moral courage, and the refusal to take advantage of another person's darkest hour. In the end, every crisis tests not only our systems, but our humanity. And humanity must always choose dignity over exploitation, truth over deception, and love over fear.